This is the psychological trick that shaped empires, and it still works today. Once you see it, you'll never unsee it, and you'll start noticing how it's being used against you every single day. The Socratic Method. Imagine you're in the middle of a debate, fully convinced you're right. You present your arguments with confidence, but suddenly, the other person doesn't try to counter your points with force. Instead, they ask you a few simple, seemingly innocent questions. At first, you might think nothing of it. But as the questions continue, you feel an unsettling shift. You begin to question your own arguments. Slowly, your certainty starts to crumble. What just happened? You've been caught in the web of the Socratic Method. The Socratic Method, developed by the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates, isn't about overpowering someone with facts or forceful arguments. It's about asking the right question. Questions that challenge the other person's assumptions and make them think critically about their own beliefs. Socrates didn't directly tell people they were wrong. Instead, he guided them to realize it on their own. This technique, though simple, is incredibly effective because it doesn't provoke direct resistance. The magic of the Socratic Method lies in its subtlety. By asking questions that lead someone to question their own reasoning, you can make them realize that their beliefs are not as strong as they once thought. For example, if someone claims that justice is always fair, Socrates would ask, "Is justice always fair to everyone?" With a few more questions, the person would start to see that their understanding of justice does. With a few more questions, the person would start to see that their understanding of justice doesn't hold up in all situations. They might even begin to question the very definition of justice itself. What makes the Socratic Method so powerful is that it works without confrontation. When someone tells you you're wrong, your first instinct is to defend your position. But when you're gently led to your own contradictions, you don't feel attacked. You feel like you're discovering something on your own. This makes the method incredibly effective because it plants seeds of doubt in your mind without you ever realizing you're being manipulated. Instead of fighting back, you begin to doubt your own beliefs. In everyday life, the Socratic Method can be used in everything from negotiations to personal relationships. It's a subtle form of persuasion that doesn't rely on pushing your ideas onto others. Instead, it allows you to lead someone to your point of view by simply making them question their own assumptions. Whether you're trying to change someone's mind or just understand them better, this method allows you to shape their thoughts without them even realizing it. But why does this work so well? The reason is simple. People don't like to be told they're wrong. When someone directly challenges your beliefs, you instinctively fight back. But if you're led to see the flaws in your own thinking, it's much harder to resist. The Socratic Method taps into this natural human tendency to avoid confrontation while still guiding the person to the truth. This method isn't just for philosophers. It's been used throughout history by leaders, politicians, and influencers to manipulate public opinion and persuade others. By subtly guiding someone to see their own contradictions, you can get them to change their behavior without ever having to force it upon them. It's a form of psychological persuasion that can be incredibly powerful when used correctly. And the best part, it doesn't even feel like manipulation. When done right, the Socratic Method feels like a natural conversation. The person being questioned doesn't feel attacked or cornered. They feel like they're coming to their own conclusions. It's a tool that has been used for thousands of years, and its effectiveness is still undeniable today. The Socratic Method teaches us that sometimes the most powerful form of influence isn't about shouting your opinions at others. It's about guiding them to see the flaws in their own reasoning. By helping someone realize their own contradictions, you can change their perspective without ever having to directly confront them. It's a subtle, yet powerful form of persuasion that anyone can use. If you found this technique interesting, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content about ancient psychological tricks. What other psychological techniques would you like to explore? Share your thoughts in the comments. Aristotle's Rhetoric. Have you ever watched someone speak and found yourself completely captivated by their words? It's as if they have a special power to sway your thoughts, to change your perspective, even though they haven't directly argued with you. This ability to influence and persuade isn't magic. It's an art mastered by the great philosopher Aristotle. His work on rhetoric, the art of persuasion, has shaped the way we communicate and convince others for centuries. Aristotle defined rhetoric as the faculty of observing in any given case the available means of persuasion. This means that anyone can be persuaded if the right approach is used, and Aristotle outlined 3 key elements that make persuasion so powerful: ethos, pathos, and logos. These are the tools used to connect with the audience on different levels: credibility, emotion, and logic. Together, they form the backbone of effective persuasion. The first element, ethos, is about establishing credibility. If you're trying to persuade someone, they need to trust you. Aristotle argued that if you can show yourself as a person of character and authority, people are far more likely to listen to what you have to say. Whether you're an expert in a field or simply appear genuine, your ethos sets the tone for how people will perceive your message. When someone speaks with authority, they have an almost magical ability to convince others of their viewpoint. This is why leaders and influencers often rely heavily on their personal credibility. Next, there's pathos, which appeals to the emotions of the audience. Aristotle believed that emotions were a powerful tool for persuasion because people often make decisions based on how they feel, rather than on logic alone. If you can tap into someone's emotions, you can change their perspective, whether it's evoking feelings of joy, fear, anger, or empathy. Think of the most compelling speeches or advertisements. They often aim straight for the heart, because an emotional connection is what drives action. Pathos doesn't just appeal to the rational mind. It speaks directly to the heart, which can be far more influential. Finally, there's logos, which is the logical appeal. This is the foundation of rational arguments. If you can present facts, statistics, or a well-reasoned argument, you appeal to someone's intellect. But Aristotle warned that logos alone isn't enough. It has to be supported by ethos and pathos. People may listen to a logical argument, but it's only when the argument resonates emotionally or comes from a credible source that it truly persuades. Aristotle quotes, "Rhetoric isn't just about convincing someone to agree with you. It's about mastering the art of human connection. Whether in politics, business, or daily conversation, these principles are at work all around us." Think about a powerful leader who speaks with confidence, makes you feel something, and backs it up with logical reasoning. You don't just hear their words. You feel them, you trust them, and you're more likely to follow their lead. Today, Aristotle's rhetoric is still incredibly relevant. Politicians use it to win votes, advertisers use it to sell products, and even influencers use it to sway their followers. The 3 elements of persuasion work together to form a complete argument, one that appeals to both the heart and the mind. Whether you're aware of it or not, you've likely fallen victim to this powerful technique many times. Mastering Aristotle's rhetoric can be an incredibly valuable tool in everyday life. If you know how to appeal to the credibility, emotions, and logic of others, you can gain their trust, inspire action, and change their perspective. It's the same technique that powerful orators, politicians, and leaders have used for centuries to shape public opinion and sway hearts and minds. So next time you're in a conversation or presentation, think about how you can apply ethos, pathos, and logos. Whether you're trying to convince someone of an idea or simply telling a story, these tools can help you become a more persuasive and effective communicator. Sun Tzu's psychological warfare. Imagine you're about to enter a battle, but you're not armed with weapons. Instead, you've mastered the art of psychological warfare. You don't need to be the strongest or the most powerful. Instead, you use the mind, manipulating your opponent's thoughts, emotions, and actions. This is the essence of Sun Tzu's psychological warfare, a powerful technique that has influenced military leaders, strategists, and even modern-day business moguls. In his ancient text, The Art of War, Sun Tzu outlined strategies for not only physical battle, but also for mental domination. One of the core principles of psychological warfare is deception. Sun Tzu believed that if you can mislead your opponent, you can control their actions without them even realizing it. It's not about brute force. It's about tricking the enemy into doing what you want without them ever knowing they've been manipulated. He famously said, "All warfare is based on deception." The first step in Sun Tzu's psychological warfare is creating uncertainty in your enemy. If your opponent is unsure of your next move, they'll become hesitant and indecisive. The key is to make them doubt their own plans. Whether it's feigning weakness to lure them into a false sense of security or creating confusion with unexpected moves, uncertainty forces your enemy to second guess themselves. When they don't know what to expect, they're more likely to make mistakes. And that's when you can strike dot. Another key tactic Sun Tzu emphasized is manipulating perception. How your enemy perceives you or your intentions can be just as powerful as your actual actions. For example, if you can make your enemy believe that you are much stronger than you really are, they might hesitate to attack you, or worse, they might withdraw entirely. Sun Tzu knew that perception is often more important than reality, because people act on what they believe. If you can manipulate their perception, you can control their decisions. Sun Tzu also teaches the importance of psychological preparation. Knowing how to handle stress, how to keep your cool under pressure, and how to control your emotions can make you a formidable opponent. In battle, if you are calm and composed while your enemy is frantic and disorganized, you have the upper hand. Psychological resilience is just as important as physical strength when it comes to overcoming your opponent. But it's not all about manipulating your opponent. Sun Tzu also highlights the importance of knowing yourself. He famously said, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." Understanding your own weaknesses and strengths allows you to act strategically and avoid traps. Knowing what makes you vulnerable can help you avoid making psychological mistakes that could be used against you. Sun Tzu's principles of psychological warfare go beyond the battlefield. They apply to everyday life as well. In business, relationships, and negotiations, understanding the psychological tactics at play can give you a major advantage. By understanding how to control perceptions, create uncertainty, and remain composed under pressure, you can sway outcomes in your favor, just like Sun Tzu's military generals did thousands of years ago. Psychological warfare isn't about brute force or physical domination. It's about controlling the mind. It's about making your enemy or opponent react in ways that benefit you, all while they believe they are in control. In today's world, we can see these principles in action all around us. Advertisers use it to manipulate consumer behavior. Politicians use it to sway voters, and leaders use it to maintain power. By mastering Sun Tzu's psychological warfare, you learn not only how to deceive and manipulate others, but also how to become mentally resilient yourself. It's not about controlling others with force. It's about outsmarting them mentally. By applying these principles, you can become a true strategist, using the power of the mind to achieve your goals without ever having to raise a sword. Machiavelli's persuasion tactics. Imagine navigating a world full of complex politics, power struggles, and manipulation. You need to convince others, but not just with words. You need to use strategy, tactics, and sometimes subtle manipulation. This is where Machiavelli's persuasion tactics come in, an ancient art of influence that has shaped the way leaders, politicians, and strategists think for centuries. If you've ever wondered how some people seem to always get their way, The answer may lie in the cunning, persuasion techniques that Niccolò Machiavelli outlined in his famous work, The Prince. Machiavelli believed that to gain and maintain power, one must not just be good at leadership, they must be masters of persuasion. He understood that the world is not just about brute strength or force, but about manipulating perceptions and guiding others to make decisions that benefit you. He didn't advocate for direct confrontation. Instead, he advised leaders to subtly influence people in ways that made them think they were acting in their own best interest, when in reality, they were playing right into your hands. One of Machiavelli's core principles of persuasion was the idea of appealing to self-interest. He recognized that people are motivated by their own desires and needs. If you want to persuade someone, you must first understand what they truly want. By aligning your goals with theirs, you can convince them that helping you serves their own interests. Machiavelli famously said, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." This shows us that the key to influencing others is not necessarily what you say, but who you surround yourself with and how you present yourself as an ally to their personal gain. Another tactic Machiavelli often used was the art of creating dependency. He understood that when people rely on you, they are more likely to do your bidding. By positioning yourself as the person who can solve their problems or provide them with something they need, you create a bond of dependence that forces them to stay aligned with your interests. This idea of leveraging mutual dependency is often used by powerful people to maintain control, whether it's in politics, business, or even in personal relationships. Machiavelli also emphasized the power of fear as a tool for persuasion. He understood that fear can be a powerful motivator, and while he cautioned against ruling solely through fear, he acknowledged its value in maintaining control. People are more likely to listen and follow if they fear the consequences of not doing so. This doesn't mean you should create unnecessary cruelty, but rather establish a presence where others understand that defying you could lead to significant negative outcomes. Fear can be a tool that forces compliance, but it must be used wisely and selectively. However, one of Machiavelli's most intriguing persuasion tactics was the idea of manipulating appearances. According to him, perception is often more important than reality. If you can make people believe that you are virtuous, capable, and trustworthy, they are more likely to support you, even if your actions don't always align with those ideals. This is why Machiavelli advised leaders to appear generous, kind, and honest, even when they may not actually be those things. By crafting the right image, you can convince people to follow you without them ever realizing they're being influenced. In fact, much of political and corporate strategy today still hinges on shaping the narrative and controlling how others perceive you. The final principle Machiavelli taught was the art of timing. He understood that sometimes the best persuasion tactic is knowing when to act and when to wait. Knowing when to move forward with your ideas and when to step back and let others take the lead is key to influencing people effectively. Rushing in too quickly can cause people to resist, while waiting too long can make them lose interest. Timing, like everything else in Machiavellian persuasion, must be executed with precision. Machiavelli's tactics are as relevant today as they were in his time. In business, politics, and personal life, understanding human nature and using it to guide others' decisions is a powerful tool. These persuasion techniques go beyond just convincing someone to agree with you. They help you manipulate situations, shape perceptions, and influence outcomes in your favor. By mastering Machiavelli's methods, you can gain an edge in any area of life that requires influence. The Zen Koan Technique. Have you ever been in a situation where someone asked you a question that didn't make any sense at first, but as you thought about it more, it completely changed your perspective? You might have felt a shift in your mind, like something clicked into place. This is the power of the Zen Koan Technique, an ancient method that challenges conventional thinking and forces the mind to break free from its usual patterns. In Zen Buddhism, a koan is a paradoxical question or statement used by masters to provoke deep thought and spiritual insight. These riddles aren't meant to have a clear answer. They're designed to push you beyond logical reasoning and into a space of deep contemplation. The purpose of a koan isn't to find the right answer. It's to awaken the mind to new ways of thinking. And this powerful technique can be applied to persuasion and influence, helping you shift the perspective of others in subtle yet profound ways. At the heart of a koan is the idea of breaking down conventional thinking. When you encounter a koan, your brain naturally tries to find a logical solution, but it soon hits a wall. The more you try to solve it, the more you realize that traditional thought processes don't apply. The purpose of this mental challenge is to bypass the usual way of thinking and trigger a shift in consciousness. By using the Zen Koan technique in persuasion, you can lead others to question their assumptions and rethink their positions. Instead of presenting an argument directly, you introduce a question or paradox that forces them to confront their beliefs. This moment of confusion opens the door for new perspectives to emerge. It's not about convincing someone with logic. It's about shifting their mindset. One famous example of a Zen koan is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? On the surface, this question seems absurd. How could one hand possibly clap? But the question is designed to take you beyond the boundaries of ordinary thinking, to challenge your perception of reality. In persuasion, this technique can be used to plant seeds of doubt or curiosity in others' minds. Instead of offering a direct answer or solution, you present something unconventional that causes them to rethink their assumptions. This disruption in their thinking allows you to influence their decisions in a way that feels natural, almost as if they've arrived at the conclusion themselves. The Zen Koan technique is also about creating mental space. When a person is confronted with an idea that doesn't fit into their usual patterns of thought, it can create a sense of cognitive dissonance, an uncomfortable feeling that results from holding two contradictory beliefs at the same time. This mental discomfort compels them to resolve the conflict, often by considering new ideas or perspectives. The challenge is to ask the right questions at the right time, pushing the person into a state where they're open to new thinking. One of the most important aspects of the Zen Koan technique is that it forces people to engage with their own inner thought process. Rather than presenting a well-reasoned argument or a direct line of persuasion, you create an opportunity for them to explore their beliefs and assumptions. The deeper they delve into the paradox or question, the more likely they are to see things from a different angle. This method can be incredibly effective when trying to influence others because it doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like a natural progression of thought, a journey they've undertaken on their own. Another reason the Zen Koan technique is so powerful is that it encourages mindfulness. By disrupting someone's thinking with a koan, you also bring them into the present moment. They're no longer distracted by past experiences or future concerns. They're fully engaged in trying to understand the paradox in front of them. This heightened sense of awareness makes them more open to new perspectives and more willing to reconsider their views. In a world where persuasion often relies on logical arguments or emotional appeals, the Zen Koan technique offers a different path, one that engages the mind in a deeper, more reflective way. Instead of convincing someone through forceful reasoning, you lead them to uncover the truth for themselves. This self-discovery is far more powerful and lasting than any external persuasion. The illusion of choice. Have you ever walked into a store or browsed online, feeling like you were presented with a wide variety of options, only to realize later that they all lead to the same conclusion? This is the illusion of choice, a psychological tactic that's used to make us believe we're in control of our decisions, when in reality, the options we're given are carefully designed to steer us in a specific direction. Whether in consumer behavior, politics, or personal decisions, we're often manipulated into thinking we have freedom of choice. But the reality is far more controlled than we realize. The concept behind the illusion of choice is simple. It plays on the human desire for autonomy. We all want to feel in control, especially when it comes to the decisions that affect our lives. By offering a range of options, it feels like we have power over our decisions. But in many cases, these options are strategically limited, making it seem like we're free to choose, when we're actually being subtly nudged toward one specific outcome. The key here is that the choices are framed in such a way that we think we're in control, but the options are often carefully curated to benefit those offering them. One of the most common ways the illusion of choice is created is through framing. The way an option is presented can drastically change how we perceive it. A company might offer a limited-time deal or discounted price, making you feel like you're getting a great value, when in reality, the product or service is priced the same as it was before. The framing of the deal makes it feel like a better choice than it actually is, and you're more likely to act on it because it appears to be an opportunity you can't miss. Another powerful tactic is choice overload. This happens when you're given too many options, which sounds like a good thing, but it can actually paralyze you into inaction. With so many choices, it becomes difficult to make a decision, and instead of carefully considering all the options, you end up defaulting to whatever seems easiest or most convenient. This confusion often benefits the entity offering the choices, as it reduces the chances you'll make an informed, deliberate decision. It's all about making you feel like you have options when, in fact, your decision-making process is being manipulated. Politicians often use the illusion of choice as well. When elections come around, voters are presented with different candidates or parties, each claiming to offer something new or different. But if you look closely, you'll often find that the policies of each candidate or party are more alike than they appear. The illusion is that you have the power to change the system by choosing one candidate over another. But in reality, the outcome is often the same, and the system remains unchanged. The illusion of choice here is about making you feel like you're in control of your political future, even though your decision may not lead to meaningful change. In the business world, the illusion of choice is frequently used in subscription models. Companies often present you with a variety of plans or services, making it feel like you're selecting the best one for your needs. But in many cases, these options are designed to lead you to the company's preferred outcome, often through hidden fees or fine print that you might overlook. For example, a free trial may convert into an automatic paid subscription, and before you know it, you're locked into a service without ever really feeling like you made a true choice. The illusion of choice in these situations makes you feel like you're in control, but in reality, you're being nudged toward the company's desired outcome. Once you begin to recognize the illusion of choice, you can start to regain control over your decisions. It's about becoming aware of how the options you're presented with are being framed, and how they might be leading you toward a decision that doesn't necessarily serve your best interests. Critical thinking is key. By questioning the motives behind the choices you're given, you can begin to make more informed decisions that align with your true needs and desires. In order to break free from the illusion of choice, it's important to take a step back and assess your options more carefully. Ask yourself, are these really all the choices available to me, or are these options being presented to me in a way that limits my freedom? Awareness of how these tactics work can help you regain autonomy in your decision-making, allowing you to make choices that are genuinely in your best interest. Diogenes' cynical psychology, Diogenes of Cynical, one of the most famous figures in ancient Greek philosophy, is best known for his radical approach to life through cynicism. His philosophy, which involved rejecting societal norms, materialisms, and conventional expectations, offers a powerful lens for understanding human nature and the ways we are conditioned by society. For Diogenes, true freedom could only be achieved by stripping away the artificial constraints imposed by society and by rejecting the false ideals of wealth, fame, and social status. The cornerstone of Diogenes' cynical psychology is the idea that the pursuit of wealth and societal approval is ultimately meaningless. Diogenes famously wandered the streets of Athens with a lantern, claiming to search for an honest man. This act symbolized his belief that honesty and authenticity were rare, and that the pursuit of material wealth and social prestige was misguided. He rejected the idea that happiness could be found in possessions or societal recognition. Instead, Diogenes argued that simplicity was the key to true freedom and happiness. By rejecting the pressures of society to conform and accumulate wealth, we free ourselves from the anxiety that often comes with trying to meet external expectations. In addition to rejecting materialism, Diogenes embraced discomfort as a way to challenge conventional ideas of what it means to live a good life. He is often depicted living in a barrel or a large ceramic jars in Athens, rejecting the comforts of home and the social conventions that most people clung to. His embrace of discomfort was a radical statement about the nature of happiness. It wasn't about acquiring things or living in luxury. It was about living authentically, with a sense of inner peace that comes from reducing unnecessary desires. Diogenes believed that happiness didn't come from external sources, but from living according to nature and rejecting the false comforts of materialism. Another essential aspect of Diogenes' philosophy was his defiance of authority. Diogenes had little regard for the social hierarchies that most people respected. In one of his most famous interactions, when Alexander the Great offered to grant him any wish, Diogenes replied, "Yes, stand out of my sunlight." This simple yet bold act encapsulates his belief that no one, no matter how powerful, should have the ability to control or dominate another person's life. For Diogenes, authority was nothing more than another social construct, and he encouraged others to question the power structures around them. Psychologically, Diogenes' philosophy offers a liberating perspective on how to live a more authentic life. By rejecting materialism, societal validation, and the pursuit of wealth, we can free ourselves from the mental constraints that often dictate our behavior. Diogenes' teachings are still relevant today, particularly in the context of modern mindfulness practices and self-acceptance. In today's world, many people are constantly chasing external validation, whether through social media, career achievements, or material possessions. Diogenes teaches us that true freedom comes from rejecting the illusion that these things will bring us happiness. Instead, we must look inward and focus on cultivating authenticity and contentment from within. While Diogenes' approach may seem extreme or impractical in modern society, his core message is simple. Freedom lies in rejecting the artificial constraints that society places on us. In a world where materialism and social expectations are often prioritized, Diogenes reminds us that real happiness is found in simplicity, authenticity, and the rejection of unnecessary desires. By embracing discomfort, questioning authority, and living more naturally, we can create a life that is true to who we are, rather than one dictated by the pressures of society. If you found Diogenes' radical philosophy thought-provoking, like, comment, and subscribe. Stoic emotional control. The philosophy of Stoicism, developed by ancient Greek philosophers such as Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, offers a profound approach to managing emotions and achieving inner peace. Central to Stoic thought is the idea that while we cannot control external events, we do have complete control over our reactions to them. By cultivating emotional control, Stoics believed we could live more rationally and be more resilient in the face of life's challenges. That Stoic emotional control begins with the realization that emotions like anger, fear, or frustration are often the result of our judgments and beliefs about situations, rather than the situations themselves. For example, you might become angry when someone cuts in front of you in line. But the Stoic perspective suggests that it's not the action of the person cutting in line that causes your anger, but your belief that the situation is unfair or that it should be different. By changing the way we perceive and react to events, we can reduce emotional turmoil and maintain a sense of inner calm, regardless of external circumstances. One of the key Stoic techniques for emotional control is reframing. When faced with a difficult situation, a Stoic would try to see it from a different perspective, asking themselves, "What can I learn from this? How can I grow through this experience?" This shift in focus from frustration, personal growth helps transform adversity into an opportunity for self-improvement. Instead of letting negative emotions take hold, Stoics view challenges as opportunities to strengthen their character and deepen their understanding of themselves. Another essential Stoic practice for emotional control is mindfulness. Stoics were proponents of becoming fully aware of their thoughts and emotions, recognizing that awareness is the first step in taking control of them. By becoming conscious of our emotional responses, we can choose not to react impulsively. For instance, if you feel a rush of anger building inside you, a Stoic would encourage you to pause, take a deep breath, and examine the cause of that anger. This mindfulness allows you to break the automatic cycle of emotional reactions and instead respond thoughtfully and calmly. The Stoics also practiced acceptance of things beyond their control. They recognized that there are many aspects of life, such as other people's actions or natural events, that are simply out of our hands. By accepting these things and letting go of the desire to control them, Stoics reduce the emotional strain that often comes with trying to force life to conform to our desires. In practice, this means recognizing when something is outside your control and choosing to focus your energy on what you can influence: your thoughts, attitudes, and actions. Emotional resilience is another vital concept in Stoic emotional control. The Stoics emphasize the importance of developing the strength to withstand hardship and adversity without being overwhelmed by negative emotions. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, obstacles and setbacks are not things to avoid, but rather opportunities to practice resilience. Through consistent practice of self-discipline and reflection, Stoics believed that anyone could cultivate the ability to maintain emotional equilibrium, no matter how intense the external pressures might be. Stoicism also emphasizes the importance of detachment, not in the sense of indifference to others, but in recognizing that our happiness and peace should not depend on things or people outside ourselves. For instance, if we tie our emotional well-being to a particular outcome, we're setting ourselves up for disappointment, as outcomes are often beyond our control. Instead, Stoics believe in cultivating a sense of contentment with whatever happens, knowing that our true peace comes from within, not from external circumstances. In modern times, Stoic emotional control can be seen in practices like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which helps individuals reframe negative thought patterns and gain control over their emotional responses. Much like Stoicism, CBT encourages individuals to challenge distorted thinking, adopt a more balanced and rational view of the world. This shared focus on the power of thought and perspective is one of the reasons why Stoicism continues to be relevant today, providing valuable tools for emotional regulation and personal growth. Plato's cave, Plato's allegory of the cave, found in his work The Republic, is one of the most enduring and profound philosophical concepts. It explores the nature of reality, perception, and enlightenment. In this allegory, Plato invites us to consider the limitations of our understanding of the world and challenges us to think deeply about the nature of truth and knowledge. In the allegory, prisoners are chained in a dark cave facing a wall. They can see only shadows cast by objects behind them, which are illuminated by a fire. The prisoners have never seen the objects themselves, only their shadows. For these prisoners, the shadows are their only reality. They believe the shadows are all there is, because they have never experienced anything different. The shadows in Plato's cave symbolize perceptions, the limited view of reality that most people hold. The prisoners, seeing only shadows, believe them to be the only true representation of the world. This mirrors how, in everyday life, we often accept appearances, media narratives, and surface-level knowledge as the truth without questioning or exploring deeper realities. Plato's allegory suggests that our perceptions of reality are limited and shaped by the environments in which we live. What we perceive as reality may be a mere reflection of the truth, distorted by our biases, upbringing, or cultural influences. The story becomes even more profound when one of the prisoners escapes the chains and exits the cave. At first, he is blinded by the sunlight outside, overwhelmed by the brightness and unfamiliarity of the world. However, as his eyes adjust, he begins to see the true forms of objects, experiencing the world as it really is, beyond the shadows. This journey symbolizes the philosopher's search for truth, moving from ignorance to knowledge, from illusion to reality. The escape from the cave is symbolic of enlightenment, the process of gaining a deeper understanding of the world and ourselves. Just as the escaped prisoner initially struggles to see the world clearly, the journey toward truth can be uncomfortable and disorienting. It requires critical thinking and a willingness to question accepted beliefs, as well as the courage to explore beyond the superficial appearances of things. Plato's allegory highlights the discomfort that often accompanies growth. It's not always easy to step out of the familiar and confront the complexities of reality. Once the escaped prisoner has seen the truth, he returns to the cave to share his knowledge with the others. However, when he tells the remaining prisoners about the world outside, they are skeptical and resistant to believe him. The shadows are all they know, and the idea of a reality beyond their limited perceptions is too foreign for them to accept. In this way, Plato also explores the difficulty of changing societal views and the challenge of bringing new knowledge to those who are not ready to accept it. The cave prisoners represent people who are comfortable with their existing worldview and are reluctant to challenge it, even when presented with new information. Plato quotes the allegory of the cave can be applied to many aspects of modern life. In today's world, we are often surrounded by media, social influences, and ideologies that shape our perceptions. We may accept certain ideas or truths without questioning them, simply because they have been presented to us for so long. The allegory calls for a deeper examination of the world around us, urging us to step outside the cave of preconceived notions and engage with the world in a more thoughtful and critical way. One of the key lessons from the cave is that truth is not always what it seems on the surface. What we often accept as reality may be a distorted version of it, shaped by our limited experiences and the perspectives of others. Plato's allegory encourages us to be curious, to seek deeper knowledge, and to challenge our own assumptions. It reminds us that the journey toward truth requires self-reflection, critical questioning, and a willingness to leave behind the comfort of the shadows for the discomfort of the light. Ultimately, the allegory of the cave teaches us that true freedom and understanding come from seeing the world as it really is, not just as we want it to be. By stepping out of the shadows and embracing a broader, deeper perspective, we can free ourselves from the limitations of our own perceptions and unlock a more authentic understanding of reality. Hannibal's misdirection. Hannibal Barca, one of the most brilliant military strategists in history, is best known for his daring tactics that shocked the Roman Empire during the Second Punic War. A key component of his success was his mastery of misdirection, a strategy that involves misleading the enemy and creating confusion in their ranks to gain a tactical advantage. By distorting the enemy's perception of reality, Hannibal turned the battlefield into a space where the Romans were always a step behind. One of the most famous examples of Hannibal's misdirection came during the Battle of Cannae in 216 BC. Despite being vastly outnumbered, Hannibal lured the Roman forces into a trap. He allowed them to advance into the center of his formation, where the Romans believed they were gaining ground. In reality, this was exactly what Hannibal wanted. As the Roman legions pushed forward, his troops on the flanks closed in, surrounding the Romans in a devastating encirclement. The result was a crushing defeat for Rome, demonstrating how misleading appearances can create the illusion of success, only to reveal a deadly trap. Beyond battlefield tactics, Hannibal's use of misdirection extended to his movements and logistical operations. During his famous crossing of the Alps to invade Italy, he intentionally left misleading tracks and burned villages behind him to confuse the Romans about his true route. By making it appear as though he was heading in one direction, Hannibal was able to set up a completely unexpected attack elsewhere. This constant state of confusion forced the Romans to spread their resources thin, never knowing where Hannibal would. The result? Hannibal maintained the upper hand, even when outnumbered and in unfamiliar terrain. The psychological impact of Hannibal's misdirection was profound. His ability to create uncertainty in the minds of his enemies was one of his greatest strengths. The Romans were used to facing a well-organized enemy, but Hannibal's unpredictable tactics threw them off balance. This uncertainty played on the fears of the Roman commanders, forcing them to make hasty decisions and waste resources in futile attempts to counter a threat that kept shifting. Hannibal's understanding of psychological warfare allowed him to weaken his opponents without ever engaging in a full-scale battle on his terms. Hannibal, quote's approach to misdirection was not just about deception. It was about managing the enemy's expectations. By creating false impressions, whether by appearing to retreat or feigning an attack, he kept the Romans guessing. He made them believe he was weaker than he was, luring them into false assumptions about where he would strike next. By the time the Romans realized their mistake, it was often too late. The concept of misdirection extends far beyond military strategy. In business, misdirection is often used in marketing campaigns to create curiosity and generate buzz. Brands will drop subtle hints or release teasers to mislead their customers, building anticipation for a new product. Politicians, too, use misdirection to divert public attention from more critical issues or scandals. In negotiations, the art of misdirection can be used to keep the opposing side off balance, making them focus on irrelevant details while you prepare your next move. Hannibal quotes a success came from his ability to create a sense of uncertainty and confusion. He understood that in warfare, the enemy's perception of reality is just as important as the reality itself. By manipulating how the Romans saw the battlefield, was able to control their actions and force them into unfavorable positions. Misdirection became a tool not just for warfare, but for psychological control. This concept of misdirection is still applicable today in many areas of life. Whether it's in personal negotiations, business strategy, or even politics, the ability to mislead and confuse your opponent or competitor can provide a significant advantage. It's about controlling information, making others believe one thing, while secretly preparing for something entirely different. In conclusion, Hannibal's use of misdirection is a prime example of how psychological warfare can turn the tide in favor of a smaller force. His ability to deceive the Romans into thinking they were always in control only to turn the tables at the last moment, remains a powerful lesson in the importance of perception and strategy. Whether on the battlefield or in everyday situations, mastering the art of misdirection can be the key to gaining the upper hand. The power of silence. In a world constantly filled with noise and distraction, silence can be one of the most powerful and transformative tools at our disposal. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It's a form of communication, a strategy for control, and a psychological weapon. Whether it's in leadership, personal relationships, or negotiations, the ability to embrace silence has been a defining characteristic of the world's greatest thinkers, leaders, and strategists. Socrates, the great philosopher, often employed silence as a key element of his Socratic method. Instead of dominating conversations with words, he would leave space for others to speak and think for themselves. Silence, in this case, wasn't an absence of communication, but a strategic choice to guide others to deeper insights. By allowing others to arrive at conclusions on their own, he helped them discover truths they might have missed otherwise. This use of silence highlights its power as a tool for influencing others without direct verbal persuasion. In high-stakes situations like negotiations, silence can be incredibly effective. People often feel an uncomfortable pressure to fill silence with words, and this discomfort can lead them to reveal more information than they intended. A well-timed pause can be a powerful tool in any conversation. It forces the other party to speak first, potentially giving you the upper hand. The power of silence in negotiations lies in the psychological pressure it creates. The silence itself encourages the other party to offer concessions, admit to weaknesses, or provide valuable insights without you having to ask. Silence also plays a crucial role in maintaining emotional control. When confronted with anger, frustration, or high emotions, pausing to collect your thoughts before responding can prevent knee-jerk reactions. This allows you to think clearly and respond calmly, rather than saying something you might regret. In moments of intense emotion, silence serves as a buffer, giving you the space to process your feelings and act intentionally instead of reacting impulsively. In relationships, whether personal or professional, silence can deepen the connection between individuals. Nonverbal communication often speaks louder than words. A shared silence between two people can create a sense of intimacy and understanding that goes beyond what words can express. Silence in these moments is often a form of mutual respect, allowing the individuals to simply be in each other's presence without the need to constantly fill the space with conversation. It can also signal that someone is truly listening, which builds trust and strengthens bonds. Leaders, too, recognize the power of silence in asserting authority. When a leader speaks less and pauses before responding, it creates an aura of thoughtfulness and control. Rather than feeling the need to fill every moment with words, a leader who uses silence effectively appears more in command of the situation, giving their words more weight and significance when they do speak. This strategic use of silence can inspire respect, confidence, and trust among followers and colleagues. In conflict situations, silence can serve as a powerful de-escalation tool. In tense moments or heated debates, remaining silent can provide the necessary pause for emotions to settle. Instead of responding to an argument with more anger or frustration, silence can create the space for everyone involved to cool off, reflect, and approach the situation with a clearer perspective. This strategy has been employed in diplomacy for centuries, helping to maintain calm during negotiations and preventing conflicts from escalating further. Finally, silence can increase awareness. When you embrace silence, you become more attuned to your surroundings and the people around you. By listening more carefully to both spoken words and nonverbal cues, such as body language and tone of voice, you gain a deeper understanding of others' true feelings and intentions. Silence allows you to gather information that words alone can't provide, helping you make more informed decisions and improve your relationships. Confucian Influence. Confucianism, the philosophical and ethical system founded by Confucius more than 2,500 years ago, continues to deeply influence personal behavior, social structures, and political systems around the world today. At the heart of Confucianism is the belief that societal harmony arises from understanding one's relationships and fulfilling one's duties with respect, sincerity, and virtue. These timeless ideas have shaped cultures, particularly in East Asia, and continue to offer valuable lessons in our increasingly complex modern world. One of the key principles in Confucianism is filial piety, the duty to respect and care for one's parents and ancestors. While it begins within the family, this concept extends to all forms of authority, be it familial, social, or political. Respect for authority and hierarchy is essential for maintaining order and harmony within society. By fulfilling their duties toward others, individuals ensure the stability of their communities and prevent conflict. Another foundational concept in Confucian thought is Ren, often translated as benevolence or humaneness. Confucius believed that a person who embodies Ren acts with kindness, empathy, and integrity. This virtuous behavior, when practiced by individuals, creates a ripple effect, shaping society as a whole. A society in which people strive to be compassionate and considerate toward one another is one that fosters peace and goodwill. Ren teaches that moral excellence is not just for personal growth, but also for the betterment of those around you. Confucianism places a strong emphasis on education, viewing it as a lifelong journey towards self-improvement. Confucius taught that education was not just about learning facts or academic knowledge, but about cultivating character, moral virtue, and wisdom. The goal of education in Confucian terms is to become a better person, a person who contributes positively to society. This commitment to continuous learning has had a profound impact on educational systems, particularly in East Asia, where Confucian values still shape the way people approach learning, hard work, and personal development. A vital concept in Confucianism is Li, or the rituals and proper conduct that govern how individuals should behave in various contexts, especially in relation to others. Li encompasses not just formal rituals, but the everyday manners, respect, and humility with which we interact with others. These customs are meant to ensure that each person's behavior reflects their role in society and that relationships remain harmonious. In Confucian thought, observing proper rituals fosters mutual respect, social order, and a sense of shared purpose. Confucius also believed that a just ruler is essential for a well-functioning society. He argued that rulers should lead by example, demonstrating virtue and wisdom in their actions. The moral character of a ruler directly influences the behavior of the people they govern. If a leader is virtuous, their subjects will likely follow suit, creating a ripple effect of good governance and societal harmony. For Confucius, leadership was not a privilege to be wielded for personal gain, but a moral responsibility to serve the common good. The influence of Confucianism is deeply rooted in the structure of relationships. Confucianism teaches that social harmony is achieved when individuals understand and fulfill their roles in relationships, whether within the family, among friends, or in the community. These relationships are reciprocal, with both sides showing respect and compassion. This structure ensures mutual support and a sense of belonging. Even in modern times, the impact of Confucian values can be seen in East Asian cultures, where respect for authority, the importance of education, and social harmony remain foundational to societal structure. These values have permeated many aspects of daily life, from family dynamics to how communities engage with one another. In countries such as China, Japan, and Korea, Confucian ideals continue to play a central role in shaping social norms and expectations. Moreover, Confucian principles have also influenced Western thoughts on leadership, ethics, and personal development. The Confucian emphasis on virtue, self-cultivation, and social responsibility resonates in modern leadership theories and personal development practices. The idea of creating a morally upright society through individual and collective virtue is universal and relevant across cultures, even in contemporary settings. How to use these techniques for good. While the psychological tactics and strategies we've explored can be powerful tools for influence and persuasion, it's essential to remember that their application should align with ethical and moral principles. The true value of these techniques lies not in manipulating others for selfish gain, but in using them to promote positive change, understanding, and support for others. When used responsibly, these techniques can foster better communication, strengthen relationships, and encourage personal growth in ways that benefit everyone involved. Their power can be a force for good, encouraging people to act with intention and mindfulness in all aspects of life. One of the most fundamental ways to ensure these methods are used for good is to apply them with empathy and genuine concern for others. Whether you're using the Socratic Method to encourage critical thinking, Aristotle's Rhetoric to present ideas more effectively, or Confucian Influence to build meaningful connections, the goal should always be to empower those around you rather than manipulate or control them. The ability to listen actively, understand different perspectives, and communicate with respect can turn these techniques into tools for building trust and cooperation. Another important consideration is self-awareness. Before employing any of these strategies, it's crucial to ask yourself, what are my intentions? Am I acting out of a desire to help others, or am I seeking personal gain at the expense of someone else's well-being? The most effective and ethical use is well-being. The most effective and ethical use of psychological tactics comes when the practitioner is motivated by a genuine desire to support others, whether in leadership, education, or personal relationships. For example, using Machiavelli's persuasion tactics with integrity might involve motivating someone to take positive action by emphasizing mutual benefit and shared goals, rather than using deceit or manipulation for selfish purposes. Similarly, Stoic emotional control can help individuals maintain composure and perspective during challenging times, leading to a more balanced and thoughtful approach to resolving conflicts and fostering harmony. These techniques can be transformative, but they require a thoughtful and ethical mindset to truly be effective. By integrating these techniques with honesty, transparency, and respect, we can create environments in which all participants feel heard, valued, and motivated to achieve common goals. Rather than using these strategies to exploit or deceive, we can harness their power to create meaningful dialogue, solve problems, and build connections that lead to personal and collective growth. Even in professional settings, these techniques can help foster collaborative environments where all voices are heard and diverse opinions are respected. In leadership, applying these techniques for good means focusing on empowering others, encouraging their development, and helping them succeed. Whether you are guiding a team or mentoring an individual, using these methods with integrity can create an atmosphere where everyone thrives. By promoting cooperation, fostering empathy, and prioritizing shared growth, we create a world where the influence of these techniques benefits not just individuals, but entire communities. Ultimately, the key to using these techniques for good is maintaining a focus on the greater good, on the well-being of others, and the positive impact you can have on the world. Whether you're influencing someone to make a better decision, leading with wisdom and compassion, or simply engaging in deeper, more thoughtful conversations, these techniques, when applied with integrity, can help create a more thoughtful, supportive, and harmonious society.